It's strange how quickly a normal day can turn into something you'll never forget. I was in high school when it happened, and I remember that morning as clearly as if it were yesterday. The sky was gray, the air heavy with the promise of rain, and the halls buzzed with the usual chatter and laughter. I was sitting in third period, half listening to my teacher drone on about the Civil War, when the intercom crackled to life. Attention, students and staff. We are now in lockdown. Please follow all procedures and remain in your classrooms until further notice. The words sent a ripple of unease through the room. We'd practiced lockdown drills before, but this felt different. The teacher's face went pale as she hurried to lock the door and turn off the lights. We all slid down to the floor, away from the windows, hearts pounding as the reality of the situation set in. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" But no one answered. Minutes passed in tense silence. I checked my phone, expecting a flood of messages, but there was nothing. No texts, no calls, not even a news alert. The teacher tried to reassure us, whispering that it was probably just a drill, but her voice shook. I could see the fear in her eyes, the way her hands trembled as she clutched her phone. She tried to call the office, but the line was dead. No dial tone, no busy signal, just silence. That's when we started to realize something was wrong. In every other drill, we'd hear footsteps in the hall, the sound of administrators checking doors, the faint echo of walkie-talkies. But this time, there was nothing. No movement, no voices, just the distant hum of the air conditioning and the rain tapping against the windows. The silence was suffocating. Someone tried to text their parents, but the message wouldn't send. Another student tried to call 911, but the call wouldn't go through. It was as if the whole school had been cut off from the outside world. The teacher's phone, my phone, everyone's phone, none of them worked. We were completely isolated. As the minutes dragged into an hour, panic started to set in. Some kids cried quietly. Others stared at the door, waiting for something, anything, to happen. I kept checking the clock, willing the hands to move faster, but time seemed to slow down. The teacher tried to keep us calm, telling us stories, asking us questions, anything to distract us from the growing fear. But the question on everyone's mind was the same. Who made the call for lockdown? And why couldn't we reach anyone outside? The longer we waited, the stranger things felt. The school was never this quiet, not even during summer break. Every so often, someone would whisper a theory. Maybe there was a threat outside. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe the phones were just down because of the weather. But none of those explanations made sense. The teacher tried the classroom phone again, pressing every button, but it was still dead. She even tried her cell, walking to the window for better signal, but nothing worked. It was like we were in a bubble, cut off from the rest of the world. After what felt like forever, someone in the back of the room started to panic. He wanted to leave, to check the hallway, but the teacher stopped him. "We have to stay put," she whispered, her voice barely steady. "That's the rule." But the rules didn't seem to matter anymore. The emergency lights flickered, and for a moment, I thought the power might go out completely. The air felt heavy, thick with fear and confusion. Then something even stranger happened. The intercom crackled again, but this time, there was only static. No voice, no announcement, just a low, buzzing hum that made the hair on my arms stand up. The teacher tried to call the office again, but the line was still dead. We all looked at each other, wide-eyed, realizing that no one seemed to be in control. No one was telling us what to do. No one was coming to check on us. I started to wonder about the other classrooms. Were they all locked down too? Was everyone else just as confused and scared as we were? I thought about my friends in other parts of the building, about the teachers who always seemed so calm and in charge. Now it felt like we were all just kids, waiting for someone to tell us what to do. The rain outside grew heavier, drumming against the windows in a steady rhythm. The emergency lights cast long shadows across the floor, making the room feel even smaller. Someone whispered that maybe we should try to leave, to find a way out, but the teacher shook her head. "We wait," she said, her voice firmer this time. "We wait until someone comes." But no one did. The minutes stretched into hours, and still, there was no word from the office, no sound in the halls, no messages on our phones. It was as if the world outside had simply stopped. That's when I realized something that made my blood run cold. If no one could call out, and no one was calling in, who had put us in lockdown in the first place? As the afternoon dragged on, the mood in the classroom shifted from fear to a kind of numb disbelief. We whispered about what could be happening, but no one had any answers. The teacher tried to keep us busy, but her eyes kept darting to the door, as if she expected someone or something to burst in at any moment. The rain outside never let up, and the sky grew darker, making it feel later than it was. At some point, a girl near the window gasped. "Look," she whispered, pointing outside. We all crowded around, careful to stay low. The parking lot was empty. Not just empty of people, but empty of cars. Every teacher's car, every bus, even the principal's old sedan, gone. It was as if the whole staff had vanished, leaving us behind. The teacher tried to reassure us, but her voice was thin. "Maybe they moved the cars for safety," she said, but no one believed her. The intercom crackled again, and this time, a voice came through. It was faint, distorted, almost mechanical. "Remain in your rooms. Do not attempt to leave. Help is on the way." The message repeated twice, then cut off, leaving only static. The teacher tried to call the office again, but the phone was still dead. I checked my phone, hoping for a signal, but there was nothing. No bars, no Wi-Fi, just the empty battery icon slowly draining away. We started to get hungry, but no one wanted to eat. The vending machines in the hallway were just a few steps away, but the idea of opening the door, even for a second, was too terrifying. Someone suggested breaking a window, but the teacher said it was too dangerous. "We don't know what's out there," she whispered. "We don't know if it's safe." As the hours passed, the emergency lights began to dim. The room grew colder, and the shadows stretched longer across the floor. Some kids huddled together, others sat alone, staring at nothing. I tried to keep track of time, but the clock on the wall had stopped. It felt like we were trapped in a moment that would never end. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the intercom came to life again. This time, the voice was different, softer, almost pleading. "Please, stay where you are. Do not open the doors. Do not answer the windows. We're trying to reach you. Please, don't let them in." The message cut off, replaced by static. The teacher's face went white. We all looked at each other, realizing that whatever was happening, it was far from over. And for the first time, I wondered if we were the only ones left in the school. The fear in the room was different now, sharper, more urgent. The teacher tried to keep us calm, but her hands shook as she counted us again, making sure no one had slipped out. The message on the intercom echoed in my mind. Don't let them in. Who were they? What were we supposed to be afraid of? I pressed my ear to the door, listening for footsteps, voices, anything. But the hallway was silent, as if the whole building was holding its breath. Someone started to cry, and the sound set off a chain reaction. A few kids tried to comfort her, but most of us just stared at the door, waiting for something to happen. The teacher whispered that everything would be okay, but her words sounded hollow. I checked my phone again, desperate for a signal, but the screen was black. The battery had finally died. The emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. I thought I saw movement in the hallway, a flicker of something passing by the window in the door. I held my breath, heart pounding. But when I looked again, there was nothing there. The teacher must have seen it too, because she moved us all farther from the door, her voice barely more than a whisper. Time lost all meaning. The sky outside was almost black now, the rain still falling in sheets. The room was cold, and I could see my breath when I exhaled. Someone asked if we should try to leave, to find another classroom or maybe the main office, but the teacher shook her head. "We wait," she said again, her voice trembling. "We wait for help." But help never came. The intercom stayed silent, the phones dead, the halls empty. Every so often I thought I heard footsteps outside, but when I listened closer, it was just the rain. The fear was suffocating, a weight pressing down on all of us. I started to wonder if we'd ever get out, if anyone even knew we were there. Then just as I was about to drift off, exhausted from fear and hunger, the intercom crackled one last time. The voice was barely audible, broken by static. "If you hear them knocking, do not answer. Do not open the door. No matter what they say, no matter what you hear, do not let them in." The message ended, and the room fell into a silence so deep it hurt my ears. We all looked at each other, wide-eyed, understanding that whatever was outside wasn't looking to help us. And as the night closed in, we waited, listening for the sound of footsteps, or worse, a knock at the door. The hours crawled by, each minute stretching into eternity. Some kids tried to sleep, curled up on the cold tile floor, but most of us just sat in silence, eyes fixed on the door. Every sound made us jump. The groan of the building settling, the wind rattling the windows, the distant rumble of thunder. The teacher sat with her back against the wall, her face drawn and pale, clutching her dead phone like a lifeline. At some point, the rain stopped. The silence that followed was even worse. It was so quiet, I could hear my own heartbeat, the shallow breaths of the kids around me. Then, just as I started to think maybe the worst was over, we heard it. A soft, deliberate knock on the classroom door. We all froze. The knock came again, louder this time, echoing through the empty hallway. Someone whimpered, and the teacher motioned for us to stay quiet. We waited, barely daring to breathe. Then a voice called out from the other side of the door. It was a girl's voice, high and trembling. "Please let me in. I'm scared. I'm all alone." The teacher's eyes filled with tears. "Who is it?" she whispered, but the girl didn't answer. Instead, the voice grew more desperate. "Please, I don't want to be out here anymore. Please let me in." The teacher shook her head, mouthing the words from the intercom, "Do not open the door." The knocking stopped. For a long time, there was only silence. Then we heard footsteps moving down the hall, slow and heavy, fading into the distance. I pressed my ear to the door, listening, but there was nothing. No voices, no movement, just the oppressive silence. We stayed like that for the rest of the night, too afraid to move, too afraid to speak. When the first light of dawn crept through the windows, the teacher finally stood up and unlocked the door. The hallway was empty. There were no signs of anyone, no footprints, no wet spots from the rain, nothing. The school was silent, the classrooms dark, the offices empty. We made our way outside, blinking in the pale morning light. The parking lot was still empty, the street deserted. There was no sign of the staff, no sign of the other students, no sign of the girl who had knocked on our door. It was as if the whole world had vanished, leaving us behind. And as we stood there, shivering in this cold, I realized that no one had ever made the call for lockdown. No one had come to help. And whatever had been outside our door that night, it hadn't been looking for safety. It had been looking for a way in. We waited outside the school for what felt like hours, hoping to see a familiar face, a car driving up, anything that would make the world feel normal again. But the street stayed empty. The sky, a dull, washed-out gray. Some of the kids started to cry. Others just stared at the ground, too tired and scared to speak. The teacher tried to call for help again, but her phone was still dead, and none of ours would turn on. It was as if the world outside the school had simply stopped. Eventually, we decided to walk home in a group, sticking together as we made our way down the silent streets. The houses we passed looked normal, but there were no cars in the driveways, no lights in the windows, no movement behind the curtains. It was like walking through a photograph, everything frozen, lifeless, untouched. I kept expecting someone to step outside, to wave or call out, but no one did. When I finally reached my house, I found the front door unlocked. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it that morning. Breakfast dishes in the sink, my backpack by the stairs, the TV still on in the living room. But my parents were gone. I called out for them, search at every room, but there was no answer. The house was empty, silent except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I tried the landline, but it was dead. My cell phone wouldn't turn on. I checked the neighbors' houses, but they were empty too. It was as if everyone had vanished, leaving only a handful of us behind. I went back outside, hoping to see someone, anyone, but the street was deserted. That night I locked every door and window, pulled the curtains tight, and sat in the dark, listening for any sound. I thought about the voice in the hallway, the warnings on the intercom, the knock at the door. I wondered if whatever had been outside the classroom was still out there, searching for a way in. I wondered if it had found the others, if it was the reason we were all alone. I haven't seen my parents since that day. I haven't seen any of the teachers or the staff or most of the kids from my class. Sometimes I'll catch a glimpse of someone moving at the end of the street, but when I go to look, there's no one there. The world is quiet now, too quiet, and every night I hear the same soft knock at my door, followed by a voice whispering, "Please let me in." I never answer. I never open the door. And I never forget the lockdown where no one made the call.